The morning sun rose over New Busan like it had for the past 20 years. Kim Dae-ho stood on his office balcony, watching the golden light spread across the endless fields of grain. The colony had grown beyond his wildest dreams when they first landed on this world. 50,000 people now called this place home. Children ran through the streets below, their laughter mixing with the sound of farming machines in the distance. The air smelled of fresh bread and blooming flowers. Kim Dae-ho smiled and picked up his coffee. Today felt like a perfect day. "Governor Kim," a voice called from behind him. He turned to see his assistant, Park Ji-min, holding a data pad. "The morning reports are ready." "Good news, I hope," Kim Dae-ho said, taking the pad. The numbers were better than expected. Food production was up 15% from last month. The new medical center was ahead of schedule. 3 more families had announced pregnancies this week. New Busan was thriving. 2 kilometers away, Dr. Choi Min-ho was already at work in his research lab. He studied the soil samples from the eastern fields, making notes about mineral content. The planet's soil was rich and perfect for growing crops, better than Earth in many ways. His wife, Han Soo-jin, managed the largest farm on the colony. She knew every plant, every tree, every animal on their world. The native creatures were gentle and curious. They often came to watch the humans work, tilting their heads like confused pets. "The harvest will be record-breaking this year," Soo-jin had told him last night. "We might need more storage buildings." Choi Min-ho smiled at the memory. They had been lucky to find this world, lucky to build something beautiful here. In the colony's defense center, Captain Park Ji-woo reviewed the daily security reports. New Busan had 12 defense turrets and a small shield generator. Not much, but they had never needed more. The galaxy was mostly peaceful. Most alien species were friendly, or simply ignored human colonies. The turrets had only been fired twice in 20 years, both times at asteroids that came too close to the planet. "Everything quiet today, Captain?" asked Sergeant Lee Bo-ra, his second in command. "Same as always," Park Ji-woo replied. "Sometimes I wonder if we even need these defenses." Lee Bo-ra laughed. "Better to have them and not need them." At the communication center, Lee So-young monitored the long-range sensors. Her job was to watch for incoming ships and coordinate with other human colonies. Most days, she saw nothing but empty space and distant stars. Today started the same way. The sensors showed clear skies and normal space traffic far from their world. A cargo ship would arrive next week with supplies from Earth. A research vessel was scheduled for next month. Lee So-young sipped her tea and updated the daily log. All normal, all peaceful. She had no way of knowing that 12 alien warships had just entered their star system. The Vorthak Empire had ruled this part of space for 3,000 years. They were tall creatures with gray skin and red eyes. Their technology was advanced, their military strong. They believed they were better than all other species in the galaxy. Commander Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Death's Edge. He looked at the green and blue world ahead. The planet was beautiful, but that meant nothing to him. Humans lived there. That was all he needed to know. "Commander," his weapons officer said, "the human colony appears to have minimal defenses." "Of course it does," Zektar replied. "Humans are weak. They plant crops and sing songs while real warriors conquer worlds." The Vorthak had been watching human expansion for 50 years. Each new colony made them angrier. Humans were spreading through space like a disease. They needed to be stopped. "Shall we demand their surrender first?" asked the communications officer. Zektar's red eyes glowed with hatred. "No. We will make an example of this place. Other humans will see what happens when they trespass in our territory." Back on New Busan, Lee So-young was finishing her morning reports when the sensors began screaming. 12 large objects had appeared at the edge of their system. They were moving fast toward the planet. "Unknown ships," she broadcast on all frequencies. "This is New Busan Colony. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came immediately. The main screen filled with the image of Commander Zektar. His red eyes burned with hatred as he spoke. "Human insects," he said in broken but understandable English. "You have built your nest in Vorthak space. Today we remove you. Lee So-young's hands shook as she activated the emergency alarm. The warning sirens began wailing across the colony. She opened a channel to Captain Park Ji-woo. Captain, we have 12 hostile alien ships incoming. They're not responding to communication attempts. Park Ji-woo was already running to his command center. How long until they reach us? 20 minutes, maybe less. Raise the shields. Charge all defensive weapons. Send an emergency signal to Earth. Lee So-young's fingers flew over her controls. The message she sent was simple, but desperate. New Busan under attack. 12 alien warships request immediate assistance. Tell our families we tried. The message shot into space at faster-than-light speed. It would reach Earth in 6 days. Help, if it came, would arrive far too late. Governor Kim Dae-ho burst into the communication center. What's our situation? 12 warships, Lee So-young reported. They call themselves the Vorthak Empire. They claim we're in their territory. Have they made any demands? Do they want to negotiate? Lee So-young shook her head. They only said they're going to remove us. Kim Dae-ho felt ice in his stomach. Get me Captain Park. The captain's voice crackled over the comm. Governor, I need you to activate the emergency shelters. Get everyone underground now. How bad is this, Captain? There was a pause. Governor, I've seen the size of those ships. We have 12 defense turrets. They have enough firepower to crack a moon. Kim Dae-ho closed his eyes. Do what you can, Captain. I'll get the civilians to safety. The evacuation began immediately. Emergency broadcasts told everyone to move to the underground shelters. Parents grabbed their children. Teachers led their students to safety. Doctors and nurses prepared the medical shelters for casualties. But 50,000 people cannot disappear in 20 minutes. Many were still in the streets when the Vorthak ships reached orbit. Commander Zektar looked down at the colony with satisfaction. The humans were running around like scared insects. Some were trying to reach underground bunkers. Others stood in the streets looking up at his ships with fear and wonder. Begin the bombardment, he ordered. The first plasma beams struck the colony's power plant. The building vanished in a ball of superheated gas. The explosion lit up half the city. Captain Park Ji-woo watched from his command center as his defense turrets fired at the enemy ships. The energy bolts struck the Vorthak shields and simply bounced off. His weapons could not even scratch their armor. Sir, reported Sergeant Lee Bo-ra, our shields are down to 60% after one hit. Another plasma beam struck the communication center. Lee So-young had just enough time to scream before the building melted around her. Her last act was to activate the long-range beacon, sending their final message into space. The bombardment continued for 30 minutes. Plasma beams turned buildings into glass. Particle cannons carved trenches through the streets. The beautiful farms that Han Soo-jin had tended for 20 years burned to ash. Dr. Choi Min-ho was in the eastern shelter when the attack began. Through the thick walls, he could hear explosions getting closer and closer. The lights flickered each time something hit nearby. Min-ho. His wife Soo-jin grabbed his arm. What's happening up there? He held her close. I don't know. But whatever it is, it's big. A child was crying in the corner. Her mother held her tight, whispering that everything would be okay. Everyone knew it was a lie. The bombardment stopped after an hour. In the sudden silence, the survivors could hear new sounds, heavy footsteps, strange voices speaking in an alien language. The Vorthak had landed ground troops. Captain Park Ji-woo and his remaining soldiers made their last stand at the colony's central hub. They had 40 men against thousands of alien warriors. Their weapons were no match for Vorthak armor and energy shields. Make every shot count, Park Ji-woo told his men. We're not going to win, but we can make them pay. The Vorthak soldiers moved through the ruined colony like death itself. They were 2 meters tall, covered in advanced armor that made them look like metal demons. Their weapons fired beams of pure energy that cut through walls like paper. They found the shelters one by one. The underground bunkers that were supposed to protect the civilians became their tombs. The aliens showed no mercy to anyone. Men, women, children, elderly, all were killed without question. Dr. Choi Min-ho heard them coming before he saw them. Heavy footsteps echoed down the shelter's main corridor. Then came the sounds of energy weapons firing, screaming, then silence. "They're killing everyone," someone whispered in the darkness. The shelter's blast door exploded inward. Alien soldiers poured through the opening like a tide of death. Their red eyes glowed in the smoke and darkness. Choi Min-ho pushed his wife behind him, knowing it would do no good. The energy beam that killed him was the last thing he saw. Han Soo-jin survived for 10 more seconds, long enough to see her husband fall, long enough to scream his name. Then the aliens found her too. Captain Park Ji-woo's last stand lasted 20 minutes. His soldiers fought with desperate courage, but the escape pod drifted through space for 6 days before a human patrol ship found it. The 5 survivors from New Busan were barely alive. They had shared emergency rations meant for 2 people. Little Park So-ra had not spoken since they escaped. Captain Bae Min-sik of the patrol ship Daejeon's Pride could not believe what he was seeing when he opened the pod. 3 adults and a child, all suffering from shock and starvation. The 5th survivor, the farmer Nam Ji-ho, had died 2 days earlier. "Medical team to docking Bay 3, Bae Min-sik called over his ship's comm system. "We have survivors who need immediate care." Kim Min-seo, the teacher from New Busan, grabbed the captain's arm with surprising strength. Her eyes were hollow, but determined. "Captain," she whispered, "we have video recordings, the Vorthak. They killed everyone. The recordings were worse than any nightmare. Captain Bae Min-sik had served in the military for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The plasma bombardment that turned buildings to glass. The methodical slaughter in the underground shelters. 50,000 people murdered in 4 hours. "Send everything to fleet headquarters," he told his communications officer. "Priority Alpha. Admiral Yoon needs to see this immediately." Admiral Yoon Tae-kyung was reviewing supply reports when the emergency transmission arrived. He was a calm man who rarely showed emotion, but the footage from New Busan made him drop his coffee cup. It shattered on the floor of his office, but he did not notice. For 30 minutes he watched the destruction of humanity's most peaceful colony. He saw the Vorthak commander's message demanding tribute and withdrawal. He saw children running from plasma fire. He saw Captain Park Ji-woo's hopeless last stand. When the recording ended, Admiral Yoon sat in silence for a long time. His aide, Commander Lee Hye-jin, waited quietly. She had seen the footage too. Her hands were shaking. "How many colonies do we have in the 12 systems they want us to abandon?" Admiral Yoon asked finally. 17 colonies, sir. 2 million people total." Admiral Yoon stood up and walked to his window. Outside, he could see the massive shipyards of the Titan naval base. Hundreds of human warships floated in space, their hulls gleaming in the light of the station's artificial suns. "Send a message to President Nam on Earth. Tell her we need to talk immediately. And contact Dr. Kim Yuri at the Advanced Weapons Division." "Sir, the Advanced Weapons Division is classified above my clearance level." Admiral Yoon turned around. His eyes had changed. They held something his aide had never seen before. Something cold and dangerous. "Today, Commander, everyone gets clearance." On Earth, President Nam Hye-jin was in a budget meeting when the priority message arrived. Her secretary, a young man named Oh Sung-min, interrupted the meeting with unusual urgency. "Madam President, Admiral Yoon says it's an emergency. Code Black priority." President Nam had been in office for 3 years. She had never received a Code Black message. It meant humanity was under direct military threat. The cabinet meeting that followed lasted 18 hours. President Nam watched the New Busan recordings 3 times. Each viewing made her angrier. By the end, her usually calm voice had turned to ice. "How do we respond to this?" she asked her advisors. Defense Secretary Park Tae-min spread out tactical reports on the table. "The Vorthak Empire has approximately 8,000 warships. We have 3,000. Their technology appears more advanced than ours. So you recommend surrender? I recommend negotiation. Perhaps we can reach a compromise." President Nam looked around the table. Several advisors nodded in agreement. The smart move was to negotiate. Give the aliens what they wanted and save lives. Contact Ambassador Oh Sung-ho, she said finally. Tell him to open diplomatic channels with the Vorthak Empire. But privately, President Nam was already planning something else, something the Vorthak would never expect. Ambassador Oh Sung-ho had worked in alien relations for 15 years. He spoke 12 alien languages and had successfully negotiated treaties with 6 different species. He was humanity's best diplomat. Vorthak response to his communication request was swift and humiliating. Human insects, Commander Zekatar appeared on the screen, his red eyes glowing with amusement. You want to talk? Good. Here are our terms. Withdraw from all 12 systems immediately. Pay tribute of 10 billion credits worth of rare minerals. Accept permanent Vorthak oversight of your expansion. Refuse and more colonies burn. Commander, Ambassador O said carefully, perhaps we could discuss a compromise. Humanity is willing to negotiate territory boundaries, but your demands are quite extensive. Zektar's laugh was like broken glass. You are in no position to negotiate, human. You are insects. We are gods. You obey, or you die. The transmission ended abruptly. Ambassador O stared at the blank screen for several minutes. In 15 years of diplomacy, he had never encountered such complete contempt. His report to President Nam was simple. The Vorthak Empire has no interest in negotiation. They view humanity as inferior insects to be exterminated or enslaved. Nam read the report while sitting in her private office. Outside her window, she could see the lights of Earth's major cities. 2 billion people lived on humanity's homeworld. Billions more lived in colonies across space. She picked up a secure phone and dialed a number known to only 5 people in the government. Dr. Kim, this is President Nam. I need to see the Prometheus files. Dr. Kim Yuri had been waiting for this call for 10 years. She ran the most secret military research facility in human space. Her laboratories were hidden in asteroid belts and on dead worlds where no one would look for them. The Prometheus project was humanity's darkest secret. Weapons so powerful and terrible that previous presidents had refused to build them. Devices that could crack planets and tear holes in space itself. Madam President, Dr. Kim said, the Prometheus weapons were designed for one purpose: fighting an enemy so dangerous that humanity's survival was at stake. Doctor, I think that time has come. The meeting took place on Luna Base, humanity's most secure facility. President Nam, Admiral Yoon, Defense Secretary Park, and Dr. Kim Yuri gathered in a conference room buried deep under the moon's surface. Dr. Kim activated a holographic display that showed weapons designs beyond anything the others had imagined. Reality shear cannons, she explained. Weapons that can cut through the fabric of space itself. Quantum entanglement bombs that explode in multiple dimensions. Gravity manipulators that can create artificial black holes. Admiral Yoon studied the designs with growing amazement. How long to build these weapons? The prototypes are already built. We've been testing them in secret for years. We can have operational weapons installed on ships within 4 months. What about the Galactic Treaty on Weapons Limitations? Defense Secretary Park asked. President Nam's voice was cold as winter. The Vorthak broke every civilized law when they murdered 50,000 civilians. The treaty no longer applies. The decision was unanimous. Project Prometheus was authorized for full production. Meanwhile, news of New Busan had spread across human space. The massacre footage played on every news channel. Recruitment centers were flooded with volunteers wanting to join the military. Colonel Omder Bae-jun-sik was put in charge of creating a new special forces unit. He traveled to every human world looking for the best soldiers he could find. I need fighters, he told his recruitment officers. People who won't hesitate when the time comes to pull the trigger. The response was overwhelming. Former soldiers came out of retirement. Police officers resigned their positions to join. Even civilians with no military experience volunteered for training. They called themselves the New Busan Regiment. Their motto was simple: remember the children. On the industrial world of New Seoul, engineer Jung So-ra worked on a different kind of weapon. Her nanobots were microscopic machines that could consume enemy technology and convert it into weapons for humanity. Each nanobot is smaller than a virus, she explained to her team, but they work together like a pack of wolves. They can eat through ship armor, disable weapon systems, even take control of enemy computers. Her colleague, Dr. Lim Dong-jin, was developing phase shift technology. Ships equipped with his devices could become temporarily intangible, passing through enemy shields and attacks. It's based on quantum uncertainty principles, he said. For a few seconds, we can make our ships exist in a different dimensional phase. We can attack the enemy from inside their own defenses. The Vorthak Empire had no idea what humanity was preparing. Commander Zektar received regular reports from his spies in human space. They all said the same thing. Humans were building more conventional warships and training more soldiers. Predictable, Zektar told his staff. They think numbers will overcome superior technology. When their pathetic fleet arrives, we will destroy it as easily as we destroyed their colony, the Vorthak. Military began preparing for what they expected to be an easy victory. They moved additional ships to the border regions. They practiced formation attacks on mock human vessels. They were preparing to fight the same kind of war they had always fought. They had no concept of what was coming. 6 months after New Busan, the first Prometheus weapons came online. The new human flagship Soul's Vengeance was equipped with a reality shear cannon capable of tearing holes in space-time itself. Captain Lim Dong-hyun took command. Dr. Kim Yuri stood in the center of her secret laboratory, watching the final tests of humanity's most terrible weapons. Around her, machines that could reshape reality itself hummed with contained power. The reality shear cannon occupied an entire section of the testing facility. It was a weapon that turned physics into a sword, capable of cutting through the fabric of space-time itself. The test firing had torn a hole in an empty asteroid, creating a rift that led to nowhere. "Doctor," her assistant called out, "the quantum entanglement bombs are ready for installation." These weapons existed in multiple dimensions at once. When they exploded, they would destroy their target in every possible version of reality. Not even the strongest shields could protect against something that attacked from outside normal space. Dr. Kim walked to another section, where engineer Jung Sora was putting the finishing touches on her extinction swarms. Millions of nanobots, each smaller than a virus, waited in containment chambers. They looked harmless, like silver dust. Each swarm contains 50 million nanobots, Jung Sora explained. They can consume enemy ship hulls and convert the metal into more nanobots. They spread like a disease, but they're completely under our control. How long before they consume an average warship? Depending on the ship's size. Anywhere from 10 minutes to 2 hours. The nanobots work together like a hive mind. They find weak points, disable defensive systems, even take control of enemy computers. Dr. Kim nodded with satisfaction. The Vorthak had superior technology, but they had never faced weapons like these. In another laboratory, Dr. Lim Dong-jin was conducting final tests on the phase shift generators. His prototype made a small fighter craft flicker in and out of existence like a ghost. The ship becomes temporarily intangible, he explained to visiting military officers. Energy weapons pass right through it. Physical barriers become meaningless. A ship equipped with phase shift can literally fly through enemy hulls and attack from the inside. Captain Lim Dong-hyun, who would command the first phase shift destroyer, studied the readings carefully. How long can a ship remain phased? 30 seconds maximum. Any longer and the quantum effects become unstable. But 30 seconds is enough to pass through shields, deliver a devastating attack, and phase out before the enemy can respond. The captain smiled grimly. More than enough. Meanwhile, Major Song Kite was training with the new powered armor in a facility on Mars. The exoskeleton made him 3 meters tall and gave him the strength to lift a hover car, but the armor's real power was in its weapons. The rifle fires. Projectiles accelerated to 90% of light speed, the weapons technician explained. Each bullet carries the kinetic energy of a small nuclear bomb. It can punch through starship armor like paper. Song Kite aimed at a test target made of the same metal used in Vorthak ship hulls. He pulled the trigger. The bullet struck so fast that it seemed to teleport from his rifle to the target. The thick metal plate simply vanished, converted to plasma by the impact. How many rounds can the armor's power system handle? 200 full power shots, sir. After that, you'll need to recharge. 200 shots to kill how many aliens? The technician grinned. All of them, sir. The training facility echoed with the sound of superhuman soldiers learning to use weapons that defied belief. These were the men and women who would lead the ground assault on Vorthak positions. Back on Earth, President Nam Hye-jin met with the survivors of New Busan. Kim Min-seo had recovered physically from her ordeal, but her eyes still held the ghosts of 50,000 dead friends. I want you to know, President Nam said, that your sacrifice was not meaningless. Because of your testimony, because of the evidence you brought us, we know exactly what kind of enemy we face. Little Park So-ra, now 10 years old, had finally started speaking again. She looked up at the president with ancient eyes. Are you going to kill the bad aliens? She asked. President Nam knelt down to the child's level. Yes, sweetheart. We're going to make sure they can never hurt anyone again. The child nodded solemnly. Good. They killed my mommy and daddy. That night, President Nam called Admiral Yoon on a secure channel. Admiral, I want the Vorthak Empire to cease to exist. Not defeated, not conquered, erased. Understood, Madam President. Fleet Retribution will make sure of it. Fleet Retribution was humanity's answer to Vorthak arrogance. 150 ships, each equipped with weapons that pushed the boundaries of known physics. The fleet's flagship was the Soul's Vengeance, a massive battlecruiser armed with humanity's first reality shear cannon. Admiral Yoon stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the final preparations. Around him, his crew worked with quiet determination. Every person in the fleet had volunteered for this mission. Many had lost friends or family at New Busan. All of them understood that this was humanity's moment of judgment. Admiral, his aide commander Lee Hae-jin reported, all ships are reporting ready status. Weapons systems? All Prometheus weapons are online and fully charged. Phase shift generators? Operating at optimal parameters. Extinction swarms? Loaded and ready for deployment. Admiral Yoon nodded. Signal all ships. We jump to Vorthak. Space in 1 hour. The Vorthak Empire had no idea what was coming. Their spies had reported the movement of human ships, but the numbers seemed insignificant. 150 ships against the 1,000-ship Vorthak border fleet. Commander Zektar received the intelligence reports with amusement. The humans are finally showing some courage, he told his staff. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. His flagship, the Death's Edge, was the pride of the Vorthak fleet. 3 kilometers long, armed with plasma cannons that could melt continents. It had never been defeated in battle. Shall we call for reinforcements? Asked his tactical officer. Against 150 primitive human ships? Zektar laughed. Our border fleet alone has 1,000 vessels. We will crush them like insects, then proceed to destroy another human colony as punishment for their defiance. He had already chosen his next target, New Incheon, a mining colony with 200,000 inhabitants. The slaughter there would be even more satisfying than New Busan. The Vorthak border fleet took defensive positions around their main base at Keth Prime. Massive battlecruisers formed battle lines while smaller destroyers prepared for flanking maneuvers. It was a formation that had conquered 100 worlds. Contact the human fleet when they arrive, Zektar ordered. I want to see their faces when they realize how badly outgunned they are. But when Fleet Retribution emerged from hyperspace, at the edge of Vorthak territory, something was wrong. The human ships looked different, stranger. They moved in formations that made no tactical sense. Sir, the Vorthak sensor officer reported, I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from the human vessels. Unusual how? I'm not sure, sir. Some of the readings don't make sense. It's like some of their ships are partially existing in another dimension. Zektar dismissed the report. Human technology is primitive. Your sensors are probably malfunctioning. Admiral, Yoon studied the Vorthak formation from his command bridge. 1,000 enemy ships arranged in perfect battle lines. Exactly what he had expected from a conventional military force. They have no idea what they're facing, he said to Commander Lee Hee-jin. Orders, sir. Signal Captain Lim. Begin the demonstration. Captain Lim Dong-hyun commanded the destroyer Gwangju's Ghost, the first ship equipped with experimental phase shift technology. His vessel was small compared to the massive Vorthak battlecruisers, but size would not matter in this fight. Activate phase shift, he ordered. The Gwangju's Ghost flickered and became translucent. To Vorthak sensors, the ship seemed to exist and not exist at the same time. Quantum uncertainty made it impossible to target. The destroyer accelerated directly toward the center of the Vorthak formation. Plasma beams fired at it passed harmlessly through its hull. Energy shields meant nothing to a ship that existed in a different dimensional phase. "What is that human ship doing?" Zektar demanded. "Why aren't our weapons affecting it?" "Sir, it appears to be using some kind of unknown technology. Our targeting systems can't lock onto it." The Gwangju's Ghost flew straight through the shields of a massive Vorthak battlecruiser. It materialized inside the enemy ship's hull, occupying the same space as the alien vessel's reactor core. "Fire," Captain Lim ordered. The destroyer's weapons discharged point-blank into the battlecruiser's power systems. The explosion that followed lit up half the Vorthak formation. A ship the size of a small city simply ceased to exist, converted to expanding plasma and radiation. The Gwangju's Ghost phased out again, becoming intangible just as the explosion reached its hull. It emerged unharmed, ready for its next target. "Impossible," Zektar whispered. "How did they do that?" His question was answered when Admiral Yoon's voice echoed across all Vorthak communication frequencies. "Commander Zektar, you wanted to see what humanity is capable of. Let me show you what we've learned from studying your technology." The human fleet began to move, but instead of forming conventional battle lines, they scattered in patterns that seemed random. Some ships flickered in and out of existence like ghosts. Others began releasing clouds of what looked like silver dust. "Sir," the Vorthak sensor officer called out in panic, "multiple human ships are becoming intangible, and those dust." The journey to Vorthak Prime took 2 weeks. As fleet retribution moved through alien space, they encountered system after system defended by Vorthak forces. Each battle was shorter than the last. The Vorthak military had been built to fight conventional wars. Their plasma weapons and energy shields were useless against humanity's reality-bending arsenal. Ships that tried to flee found themselves caught by extinction swarms. Those that stood and fought were simply deleted by reality shear cannons. Admiral Yoon watched from his command bridge as another Vorthak fleet ceased to exist. 12 enemy battlecruisers had been guarding a mining facility. Now there was only empty space and debris. "Sir," Commander Lee Hee-jin reported, "we're receiving surrender offers from 17 Vorthak systems. They want to negotiate terms." "Tell them there are no terms," Admiral Yoon replied. "Unconditional surrender or total destruction. They made those rules when they murdered 50,000 civilians." The news of humanity's impossible victories spread through Vorthak space faster than their ships could travel. Panic began to consume the empire that had ruled this region for 3 millennia. On Vorthak Prime, Emperor Drakthar watched reports from the front lines with growing horror. His most advanced fleets were being annihilated by impossible weapons. Ships were vanishing from reality itself. Others were being consumed by microscopic machines that turned Vorthak technology against them. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his chief scientist. "The humans were primitives. They had simple energy weapons and chemical rockets." "My lord," the scientist replied, his voice shaking, "these weapons appear to operate outside conventional physics. They manipulate quantum mechanics, dimensional phase states, even space-time itself. Then develop countermeasures." "My lord, these technologies are centuries beyond our understanding. We would need decades to even comprehend the principles involved." "Emperor," Drakthar struck the scientist with enough force to break bones. "We do not have decades. The human fleet will reach our capital system in 5 days." Meanwhile, Captain Lim Dong-hyun of the Gwangju's Ghost was conducting reconnaissance deep in Vorthak territory. His phase shift destroyer could travel anywhere undetected, passing through enemy patrols like a ghost. "Captain," his sensor officer reported, "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the next system. Looks like they're preparing some kind of super weapon." Lim studied the readings on his display. The energy output was enormous, larger than anything the Vorthak had used before. Take us closer. Stay phased. The Guangzhou's ghost materialized in the outer edge of the Kethran system. What they found there made even the veteran crew gasp in amazement. The Vorthak had built a weapon the size of a moon. It floated in space near their massive shipyards, crackling with energy that could be seen from millions of kilometers away. "Sir," the weapons officer whispered, "that thing could destroy an entire planet." "Not if we destroy it first," Lim replied. "Signal Admiral Yoon. Tell him we've found something interesting." Back with the main fleet, Admiral Yoon received the reconnaissance report with grim satisfaction. The Vorthak were so desperate that they were preparing to use planet-killer weapons. "Dr. Kim," he said, speaking to the chief weapons designer via secure transmission, "how would our reality-shear cannons perform against a target that large?" "A moon-sized target would require multiple hits," Dr. Kim replied. "But Admiral, I have a better suggestion. Major Song's ground assault teams are equipped with portable quantum destabilizers. A single team could phase shift inside that weapon and detonate it from within. Do it." Major Song Kaite received his orders with the enthusiasm of a man who had been waiting months for revenge. His Phantom Battalion consisted of 50 soldiers, equipped with the most advanced power armor humanity had ever created. "Gentlemen," he told his troops, "we're going to infiltrate a moon-sized superweapon and blow it up from the inside. Any questions?" Sergeant Kim Tae-ho raised his hand. "Sir, will this be dangerous?" Song Ki-tae grinned inside his helmet. "Probably suicidal. But think of it this way. When we're done, no more Vorthak children will have nightmares about humans." The assault transport Busan's Revenge approached the Vorthak superweapon using phase shift technology. To enemy sensors, the ship did not exist. It passed through the weapon's defensive shields and docked inside one of the maintenance bays. Major Song led his team through corridors designed for aliens twice human height. Their powered armor made them giants, but they still felt dwarfed by the massive weapon's interior spaces. "Remember," Song whispered over the comm, "we need to reach the central power core, plant the destabilizers, and get out before this thing turns into a new star." The Phantom Battalion moved like death itself through the superweapon's passages. Their enhanced armor made them faster and stronger than any living creature had a right to be. When they encountered Vorthak guards, the aliens died before they could raise an alarm. Sergeant Kim Tae-ho's rifle-fired bullets accelerated to near light speed. Each shot punched through alien armor like it was made of paper. The guards simply vaporized, their bodies converted to plasma by the kinetic impact. "Power core dead ahead," reported Lieutenant Park Min-ho. "Guard strength is increasing." They found themselves facing a platoon of Vorthak elite soldiers equipped with the Empire's best armor and weapons. Under normal circumstances, it would have been a challenging fight. But the Phantom Battalion was not fighting under normal circumstances. Song Ki-tae's power armor enhanced his strength beyond human limits. He picked up a Vorthak soldier and threw him into a wall with enough force to crack the alien's exoskeleton. Sergeant Kim's weapon fire cut through enemy ranks like invisible death. The battle lasted less than 3 minutes. When it ended, 50 Vorthak soldiers lay dead around the power core chamber. "Plant the destabilizers," Song ordered. "We have 10 minutes to get clear." The quantum destabilizers were weapons that existed partially outside normal space. When they detonated, they would cause the superweapon's power core to collapse into a miniature black hole, consuming the entire structure from within. "Charges set," reported Lieutenant Park. "All units move to extraction point." The Phantom Battalion ran through collapsing corridors as alarms wailed throughout the massive weapon. Behind them, quantum forces were already beginning to tear apart the power core's containment systems. The Busan's Revenge phased back into normal space just as the superweapon began to implode. The moon-sized structure collapsed in on itself, compressed by artificial gravity into a point smaller than an atom. Then it vanished entirely, leaving only empty space where the Vorthak's ultimate weapon had been. "Target destroyed," Major Song reported to Admiral Yoon. "No human casualties." "Outstanding, Major. Return to the fleet." We have a capital world to visit. The Vorthak Empire's last hope had been destroyed by 50 human soldiers. Emperor Drakthar received the news while watching. His most powerful fleets retreat from sectors they had ruled for centuries. "My lord," his military advisor said, "our losses are now approaching 70%. We must consider negotiating with the humans." Negotiate? Drakthar's voice was filled with rage and desperation. "We are the Vorthak Empire. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. My lord, the humans have conquered us." The truth was hard to deny. In 3 weeks of fighting, humanity's impossible weapons had shattered an empire that had stood for 3 millennia. Vorthak fleets that had terrorized the galaxy now fled at the first sign of human ships. Fleet retribution arrived at Vorthak Prime to find the capital system defended by the Empire's remaining forces. 2,000 ships surrounded the alien homeworld, their weapons charged and ready for a final desperate battle. Emperor Drakthar himself commanded the defense from his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. It was the largest ship in the Vorthak fleet, armed with every weapon the Empire could devise. "If we must die," he broadcast to his forces, "we die fighting. Show these humans that the Vorthak do not surrender." Admiral Yoon studied the enemy formation from his command bridge. 2,000 ships against his 150. By conventional standards, the odds were impossible. But fleet retribution had stopped fighting conventional battles weeks ago. "Signal all ships," Admiral Yoon ordered. "Begin final assault. Show them what humanity learned from studying their war crimes." The battle for Vorthak Prime began with the deployment of extinction swarms on an unprecedented scale. Millions of nanobots spread through the alien formation like silver death, seeking out enemy vessels. The first ships to be infected tried to fight off the microscopic invaders, but it was like trying to fight a virus with swords. The nanobots consumed ship hulls and converted the metal into more nanobots. They took control of computer systems and turned Vorthak weapons against their own fleet. Within minutes, 100 enemy ships had been captured and converted to human control. They began firing on their former allies, spreading chaos throughout the alien formation. Captain Lim's phase shift destroyers struck next. Dozens of human ships flickered in and out of existence, appearing inside enemy vessels to deliver devastating, close-range attacks. Vorthak shields and armor were meaningless against weapons that could attack from within. The Gwangju's ghost materialized inside the bridge of the Eternal Dominion itself. Captain Lim found himself face to face with Emperor Drakthar the alien. 3 months after the fall of Vorthak Prime, the galaxy was a very different place. News of humanity's impossible victory had reached every civilized world within 1,000 light years. Species that had never heard of humans before were now speaking their name in whispered fear. On Earth, President Nam Hyejin sat in her office reviewing reports from across human space. The Vorthak Empire had surrendered completely. Their remaining fleets had been scattered or captured. Their industrial worlds now produced goods for human colonies. "Madam President," her aide Oh Sung-min announced, "the Galactic Council has sent another delegation. They're requesting immediate audience." President Nam smiled without humor. The Galactic Council had ignored humanity's existence for 50 years. When the Vorthak attacked New Busan, human pleas for help had been dismissed as unimportant. Now that humanity had proven capable of erasing entire star empires, suddenly, everyone wanted to talk. "How many species are represented this time?" 47, Madam President, including several that have never participated in council meetings before. "Show them in." The delegation that entered her office represented some of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. The Kepler Confederation, the Spiral Arm Alliance, the Omega Trade Federation, species that commanded thousands of worlds and controlled vast fleets. All of them looked terrified. Ambassador Veltar of the Kepler Confederation spoke first. He was a tall, blue-skinned alien who had previously refused to acknowledge human diplomatic communications. "President Nam," he said, his voice carefully respectful, "the Galactic Council wishes to extend an offer of full membership to humanity. We recognize your species as equal partners in galactic civilization." "Equal partners?" President Nam's voice was ice cold. When the Vorthak murdered 50,000 of our people, where was this offer then? The council was unaware of the situation's severity. You were unaware that genocide was severe? The alien ambassador shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps we could discuss terms for future cooperation. The council is prepared to offer significant trade agreements, technology exchanges, even military alliance treaties. President Nam stood up and walked to her window. Outside, she could see the construction yards where humanity's new fleet was taking shape, ships armed with weapons that could rewrite reality itself. Ambassador Veltar, she said without turning around. You're afraid of us. President Nam, I assure you. You're afraid because we took the most powerful military force in this region and erased it from existence in less than a month. You're afraid because our weapons operate outside conventional physics. You're afraid because you suddenly realize that the species you ignored for 50 years has become something you can't control. The ambassador said nothing. Here's what's going to happen. President Nam continued. Humanity will join the Galactic Council. We will have veto power over all military actions. We will establish monitoring stations in every major system, and if any species attempts to commit genocide against anyone anywhere, we will respond the same way we responded to the Vorthak. She turned to face the delegation. Do you understand? Every alien in the room nodded quickly. Meanwhile, Admiral Yoon was overseeing the establishment of humanity's new galactic presence. Fleet retribution had been expanded into a permanent force of 500 ships, all equipped with quantum weapons. They patrolled the former Vorthak territory, ensuring that order was maintained. The Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, now renamed the New Busan's memory, watching construction crews build a massive space station. This would be humanity's regional headquarters, a symbol of their new position in the galaxy. Sir, Commander Lee Haijin reported, we've received requests from 38 different systems asking for human protection. Apparently, several minor empires are becoming aggressive now that the Vorthak are gone. Deploy patrol squadrons to each system, Admiral Yoon ordered. Make it clear that humanity will not tolerate any attempts to fill the power vacuum with more oppression. The galaxy was learning that humanity's version of peace was very different from Vorthak conquest, where the aliens had ruled through fear and violence. Humans established order through overwhelming technological superiority combined with surprising mercy. Dr. Choi Min-ho, one of the few survivors of New Busan, had been given a new assignment. He now served as humanity's ambassador of remembrance, traveling to worlds throughout the former Vorthak Empire. His job was simple: make sure no one forgot what happened when a species chose genocide. On the world of Kalar Prime, he stood before an audience of 10,000 aliens, former Vorthak subjects who had been liberated by human forces. I was a simple scientist, he told them. I studied soil composition and crop yields. My wife grew vegetables. We were peaceful people who never hurt anyone. The audience listened in complete silence. The Vorthak Empire decided we were insects to be exterminated. They killed 50,000 of us in a single day. They murdered children in underground shelters. They burned our farms and destroyed our homes. He paused, letting the images sink in. Humanity could have responded the same way. We could have exterminated every Vorthak world, killed every alien child, turned your planets to glass. Instead, we chose to be better than our enemies. We defeated you, but we did not destroy you. An alien in the audience raised a tentacled appendage. Why did humans show mercy when the Vorthak showed none? Dr. Choi smiled sadly. Because mercy is what makes us different from monsters. But remember, mercy is a choice. If anyone ever again commits genocide against innocent people, humanity might choose differently. The message was spreading throughout the galaxy. Humanity was now the apex predator among the stars, but they could be reasoned with if approached with respect and honesty. Back. On Vorthak Prime, the reconstruction was proceeding under human supervision. The planet's government had been completely replaced with a council of reformed aliens who understood their new position in the universe. Kim Min-seo, the teacher who had survived New Busan, now served as humanity's civilian administrator for the former Vorthak capital. She walked through the rebuilt city centers, watching alien children play in parks that had been bombed into craters months before. Administrator Kim, her aide called out, "We have the monthly reports on population recovery." Good news? Birth rates are up 30% from pre-war levels. Industrial production is back to 60% of previous capacity. Crime rates are at historic lows. Kim Min-seo nodded with satisfaction. The Vorthak had learned that cooperation with humanity brought prosperity, while resistance brought swift and terrible consequences. She visited the memorial garden that had been built where Emperor Drakthar's palace once stood. Instead of monuments to conquest and dominance, the garden contained simple stone markers listing the names of every person killed at New Busan. 50,000 names carved in black granite, surrounded by earth flowers that had been planted in the alien soil. An elderly Vorthak approached her as she stood before the memorial. He was one of the few aliens who had spoken against the attack on New Busan, though his protests had been ignored by the Emperor. "Administrator Kim," he said in carefully practiced English, "my people wish to know, will humans ever forgive us?" Kim Min-seo considered the question for a long moment. Around her, the names of her former friends and colleagues reflected the light of an alien sun. "Individual forgiveness is earned," she said finally. "Your species will need to prove over generations that you've learned from this, but as a people, we'll give you that chance to prove it." The old alien bowed deeply. "Thank you for mercy we do not deserve. Everyone deserves a chance to be better than they were." Meanwhile, in the deep laboratories of the Advanced Weapons Division, Dr. Kim Yuri was working on humanity's next generation of defensive systems. The Prometheus weapons had proven devastatingly effective, but they were also dangerous in the wrong hands. "Doctor?" her assistant asked, "are we preparing for another war?" "We're preparing to never need another war," she replied. "The galaxy now knows what happens to species that choose genocide. Hopefully that knowledge will be enough to prevent future conflicts." But she continued her research anyway. Humanity had learned that peace through strength required both the strength and the willingness to use it. Captain Lim Dong-hyun of the Gwangju's Ghost was conducting a routine patrol near the former Vorthak border when his sensors detected something unusual. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "we're reading a distress signal from the Altair system. Appears to be from a human research station. Set course immediately." When they arrived, they found the research station under attack by pirates from the Nexus cartel. The criminals had apparently decided that humanity's focus on the Vorthak meant they could raid human installations with impunity. They were very wrong. The Gwangju's Ghost phased directly into the middle of the pirate formation. The criminals' weapons passed harmlessly through the human destroyer as it materialized inside their flagship. "Attention, pirates," Captain Lim broadcast. "This is your only warning. Release your prisoners and surrender immediately." The pirate captain's response was to fire everything he had at the human ship. The energy beams passed through the Gwangju's Ghost like it was made of mist. "Your choice," Lim said quietly. The quantum destabilizer he planted in the pirate flagship